Hello and welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to crochet the corner to corner mesh stitch. I am using this stitch for a couple of upcoming patterns. This one is a corner to corner triangle scarf made out of just one cake with self-striping yarn. The stitch is super easy using a corner to corner stitch technique, so we're going to be working on the diagonal from this corner. This tutorial is going to show you how to work increases as well as decreases. For my triangle scarf, there's no need to work a decrease. You will just continue increasing until you get to the size desired in your scarf and then fasten off. But I'm going to be showing you how to make a square, so I'm going to be working you through increasing and decreasing to show you how to work the stitch for a multitude of different projects. Let's go ahead and get started. My yarn on my hook here. And chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to work a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook and then in each chain to the end to create my first block. So the 4th chain over, 1, 2, 3, and 4, work a double crochet in that chain. And then in each chain to the end to create that block. So row 1 is complete. I have one solid block. Row 2, chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook and the next 2 chains. So counting over 1, 2, 3, and 4, double crochet in that chain and then in the next 2 chains to create another block. And I've completed my first block for row 2. Now, I'm going to flip row 1 block in order to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3, those 3 chains that I skipped from the beginning of that block. So I'm going to flip this up and slip stitch into the top of those skipped chains, the top of that chain 3. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then work 3 double crochets in this chain 3 space right here. So work 3 double crochets in that space. 1, 2, and 3. So your first 2 rows are exactly the same as a standard double crochet corner to corner pattern. For row 3, that's when we're going to begin working our mesh. So for row 3, we start out in the same manner by chaining 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Double crochet in that 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then in the next 2 chains to create the first block for row 3. So again, I'm going to flip my work so that I can slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 from that block. So flipping my work up, slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. And again, this is where we're going to begin our mesh. So I'm going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I'm going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3 from the first block of row 2. So here's that block, there's the chain 3, and I'm going to slip stitch. Chain 3, and then work 3 double crochets in that chain 3 space. So 1, 2, and 3. So the deviation from a standard double crochet corner to corner pattern is simply working a chain 5 instead of working a block where we would have chain 3 and worked 3 double crochets in that space. I'm going to skip after chaining those 5. I skip over that block and then complete the row as I normally would. So you're going to end up with solid blocks around the outside edge with your mesh in the middle. And we're ready to move on to row 4. So begin as we do normally with chaining 6, double crocheting in that 4th chain from the hook and in the next 2 chains, creating the first block for row 4. Flipping our work so I can slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 from that next block. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain of that chain 5 from the previous row. So it's the middle chain. You'll have 2 chains after and 2 chains before, so that middle chain slip stitch. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 from that last block there, chain 3, and work 3 double crochets in that chain 3 space. It's as easy as that. So let's move on to row 5. And row 5 is our increase row that will be repeating. Every row we would like to increase the size of our square. So this is the row you're going to repeat. Chaining 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Double crochet in that 4th chain from the hook and in the next 2 chains. So starting out just as we normally do. Flipping our work so that I can slip stitch into the top of that chain 3, chaining 5, slip stitching into that 3rd chain, so that middle chain from that next chain 5, chaining 5, slip stitch into that chain 3 of that next chain 5, and chaining 5. Slip stitch to the top of that chain 3, chaining 3, and 3 double crochet in that chain 3 space. How easy is that? And the great thing is this pattern grows really quickly. When you start moving up through your pattern and you're working more mesh, you are going to really cook through this pattern because you're only working those solid blocks on the outside edges. So just repeat row 5 to the size desired, and it's really easy to customize the size. You would just measure your outside edge. What would you like your end width to be? What would you like your end height to be? When you get to that width and height, you're going to begin decreasing. I'm going to work one more row, one more repeat row of our increases, and then I'm going to show you how to decrease and make a square. So chain 6, double crochet in that 4th chain from the hook and in the next 2 chains. Flip our work up, slip stitch into the top of that chain 3, chaining 5. Slip stitch into the chain 3 of that chain 5, chain 5, slip stitch into the chain 3 of that next chain 5, chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slip stitch into that chain 3, chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slip stitch to the top of that chain 3, chaining 3, 3 double crochets in that chain 3 space. So easy. Love it, love it, love it, and it's so pretty. I love that it creates its own border edge as well as you're working through the pattern. So if you were making a scarf with this stitch, when you got to the size that you wanted, you would just fasten off. There would be no need to work any decreases for your scarf. However, if you're wanting to create a square shape or to work some decreases for this stitch, once you get to the size desired and you want to begin your decreases, you will, instead of working that chain 6 and working another block on top of this one, you will instead turn and we will slip stitch in the top of these double crochet stitches. So slip stitch in each of these stitches, as well as the top of that chain 3. And you can see I've created a corner now. And I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And I'm only going to work 2 double crochets in that chain 3 space. And you'll see why in just a minute here. So working 2 double crochets in that chain 3 space, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that chain 3 from that next chain 5 and see what happens. I created a solid block. If I had worked 3 double crochets and then slip stitched, my block would have looked different than the rest of my blocks because I would have had 3 double crochets plus a chain 3 plus my chain 3 at the end. So this block would have been more stitches than these blocks that I've worked around the rest of my pattern. So when you're working a decrease, that first block, you're only going to work 2 double crochets before you slip stitch into that chain 5. And then the inside is the same. So chaining 5, slip stitch into that chain 3, chain 5, slip stitch into that next chain 3, chaining 5, slip stitch into that chain 3, and now if I want to make a square, I need to work a solid block. So instead of chaining 5 here, I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to work 3 double crochets in this space. So this is basically a chain 2 space, but I'm going to work 3 double crochets in that space. So there's 1, 2, and then 3, and then I'm going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to complete that row. So you can see here I have the same amount of blocks on both sides. So there's a block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm creating a square shape when I'm working these decrease rows. and then turn. Then we're going to slip stitch into the top of each of these next 3 stitches. And then slip stitch into the top of that chain 3. And then continue on repeating that decrease row. So chaining 3, 2 double crochets in that chain 3 space, slip stitch into that chain 3 of the next chain 5, and then chain 5. Slip stitch into that chain 3, chaining 5. Slip stitch into that chain 3. At my last block, chain 3, 2 to 3 double crochets in that chain space. Slip stitch to the top of that chain 3, turn, slip stitch in the top of that chain 3, chain 3, 2 double crochets in that chain 2, or that chain 3 space, I'm sorry. Slip stitch into that chain 3, chaining 5, slip stitch into that chain 3, work your end block by chaining 3 and 3 double crochets in that chain space. Slip stitch and turn. Slip stitch, slip stitch. I'm going to be working solid blocks around this last chain 5. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, 2 double crochets in that chain 3 space, slip stitch to that chain 3, chaining 3, 3 double crochets in that chain space, slip stitch, slip stitch, and then now that all my chain 5 spaces are used up, and for that last block, chaining 3, and for this last block I'm going to be working 3 double crochets in that chain 3 space so that all of my end blocks look the same. Slip stitch to the top of that chain 3, and I've completed my square. You can see that it's all the end blocks look the same, and I have a perfect square, and the inside is all of my mesh. What a cute little coaster this would make. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. Thanks so much for being with me. As always, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you never miss a new video. Thanks everyone. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.